Hello everybody, my name is Lucky Luxray, and today I am bringing you the finals of the NCPL Season 10 Pokemon Draft League Robin's Rules. I'm going up against Dev. He went 5-2 in the regular season, and he made a strong playoff run to make it to the finals. I've never battled Dev before, so this is going to be an interesting task because I definitely play better against people that I know that I've battled before. So Robin was unable to help me whenever it comes to team building and analyzing what his team can do to me, so I had to pull upon my other resources, and I was able to get Calvin to help me. So Calvin gave me a couple notes, and I'm going to give you highlights of what he said. So the first thing he said was that nothing can really be Scarf on his team except for Serena, Jolteon, and Latios, but Serena doesn't want to come against me, and then Jolteon and Latios definitely want a different item and don't want to be choice locked. So I doubt that he'll have anything to outspeed Mega Alakazam. The next thing is that Mega Pidgeot can be very annoying and very scary because he can just spam Flying Move and then Heat Wave Klefki whenever it comes out. He has a lot of breakers. Alolan Marowak, Crawdaunt, Azumarill, Lucario is very good against me and very strong as breakers, and that was pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys what his full team is so that you guys have a better understanding of what's going on, and it's the final, so why not? So his full team consists of Latios, Azumarill, Alolan Marowak, Crawdaunt, Lucario, Registeel, Serena, Gastrodon, Mega Pidgeot, and Jolteon. So let's go ahead and get into my team that I brought for this first match, and it is Nasty Plot, Psyshock, Focus Blast, Dazzling Mega Alakazam, Booster Energy, Offensive Raging Bolt, Specially Defensive Mandibuzz with Knockoff U-Turn Defog Roost, Defensive Swampert with Rocks, Specially Defensive Klefki with Light Screen, Foul Play, I believe it was Thunder Wave and something else, Spikes, and then it was Life Orb, Sheer Force Tauros with coverage moves. So let's go ahead and get into the first battle. So I lead off with Swampert because I want Rocks up immediately to chip on his threats like Marowak and Pidgeot. But he leads Pidgeot and is, like Calvin said, is able to go ahead and spam Flying Moves. So I'm like, okay, I gotta go into my Klefki to eat up any move that he goes for and then potentially Thunder Wave this or set up a Light Screen. But here I go up for Light Screen because I'm thinking, well, if he's gonna keep spamming special moves, I can go ahead and eat them up and then Foul Play, Thunder Wave, Spike up. So then he goes into Marowak straight up, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of scary, so I want to get chip on this because it can live a hit from Mega Alakazam, so I just go ahead and go for the Foul Play as he goes for Fire Punch and knocks out my Klefki. So I'm like, okay, I need to go out into Tauros or something fast to outspeed this and KO it. So I just go into Tauros and Earthquake as he brings in Azumarill, and same thing with Azumarill. I just want chip on this thing, and if it's banded, I die, and if it's not, I live. And I can kill it back, but I would risk the Aqua Jet, so he goes for Liquidation. It brings me down to 20%, and at this point I'm thinking, okay, he's not banded, so I'm going to go into Swampert to eat the Aqua Jet and just flip turn on out to get momentum and get things back on my side. So he goes into Pidgeot, I go for the flip turn, and I go right into Alakazam because I know it can outspeed, no ifs, ands, or buts, so I'm just going to go ahead and go for the Psyshock and just get some chip on some things because I didn't know if he was going to go straight into Registeel. So I'm like, okay. Here, I didn't know what he would want to do with his Registeel, so I'm thinking, okay, he's running leftovers, I don't have to worry about any item. So I'm like, I just want chip on this because Raging Bolt can kind of win, but also no at the same time. But also I have Tauros who can win. So it's like, I felt okay because he couldn't KO me. And Thunder Wave wasn't that big of a deal. So I just go straight for the Focus Blast and I crit him. Critical hit, that KO'd because it lived 100% of the time, all the time. I think it did max like 60 or 50%. So sorry, Dev, on that crit, but I'm thinking, well, hey, I'm in a great position now. And he goes into Latios, and I'm thinking, if this is Scarf, I don't want to stay in and let my Alakazam go down, so I go straight into Mandibuzz, my dedicated Latios check. He goes for Draco Meteor, and it does 51%, which tells me that this is like Soul Dew. So I'm thinking, okay, I can just go straight for the U-turn, go back into Alakazam, and call it a day. Then he brings out Latios and goes for Draco again on my switch into Mandibuzz, and I'm thinking, okay, I guess I can go right back into Alakazam and threaten this out with a Dazzling Gleam. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And at this point, in order for Dazzling Gleam to one-hit KO guarantee, I needed 2 rock entries with Latios, which he did. So Dazzling Gleam guaranteed KO at this point, and so he has to bring out Jolteon and hope he lives, and I go for Psyshock, and I crit again. Psyshock did 99 minimum if it was no HP investment. I don't know how much HP he had, but then I Dazzling Gleam Latios again, and I get another crit. So 3 crits from Mega Alakazam went really, really well on my side, but now I'm only 1 battle away from being the champion. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm in good position. All I need to do is play and do what I do. So let's go ahead and get into the second battle. So in this team, I'm bringing the same Alakazam set. It is same Raging Bolt, but with Weather Ball instead of one of the electric moves, and it has leftovers as instead of Booster Energy. It is a physically defensive Torkoal with Toxic, Lava Plume, Earth Power, and Stealth Rocks. Then I have Specially Defensive Bird. It's the same Mandibuzz as before. I have Rindoberry, Swampert, and a special Life Orb Victory Bell. So I'm like, well, let's just go ahead and lead off with Torkoal because I want Sun. And he leads off with Crawdon, and I'm thinking, okay, this is very bad for me, but I'm physically defensive, I can take any hit, and I want Rocks up. So I get my Rocks up, and I go right into Mandibuzz because I can live any hit, and he goes for Crab Hammer again, does 28%, and I'm like, great. At this point, I'm thinking, well, I want this to be kind of healthy, and I don't really have anything to hit this. So I need to switch. But I'm going to click U-turn on his anticipated switch because I also think that he doesn't want this to be too chipped, and he's locked in a Crab Hammer. It's not going to do too much to me as I can roost it off. But there's also a chance he goes for knockoff. So I click U-turn, and this is where I think, okay, I think he's going for knockoff. So I'm like, well, what do I want to take a knockoff? The best thing I have for that really is Raging Bolt. So I just go right into Raging Bolt. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and just go for Dragon Pulse because I don't think he's going to go into... or I think he's going to go into one of his electric immunities. And here, I think he's going to go for Rocks or Spike. So I'm going to just go ahead and Dragon Pulse and get rid of this Gastrodon immediately, so Alakazam doesn't really have too much of a threat on its hands. He goes into Jolteon, and I'm like, well, I don't think I really need Raging Bolt anymore. I guess it's useful for the Crawdaunt, but I valued everyone else over Crawdaunt or over Raging Bolt because they can really take care of the Crawdaunt. So he goes for Alluring Voice, takes out my Raging Bolt, and I'm like, okay, let me just go into Alakazam because I know it outspeeds and I can go for whatever I want to go for. So I just go for Psyshock, and he goes right into Latios and takes 34%, and I'm like, okay, cool. Dazzling Gleam KOs this Latios. I don't need to worry about anything. I go for Dazzling Gleam, and it turns out he's Assault Vest. So I have to hope he doesn't go for Draco Meteor, because if he does, it KOs the Alakazam, and I'm done with my 2 main offensive things except for Victory Bell. So I'm in a very, very bad position now because I threw away my Mega Alakazam. I thought, yeah, Dazzling Gleam KOs, and it didn't, which sucks. There was a roll, depending on how much HP investment he had in his Latios, but dude, it just sucked. So I'm like, okay, I need the Sun up, so I'm going right into Torkoal and then pivoting out into Mandibuzz as he goes for Luster Purge. Good on me. I'm like, okay, well, he's going to go for Thunderbolt on my Roost. He gets a Para, but I don't think that really matters in the long run. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and U-turn out because there's no reason for me to stay in. And he goes into Lucario as I go into Victory Bell. And I'm like, well, he has more sacks. He has more sacrifices than I do, so he can just keep this in Extreme Speed, get Chip off, and then go into Registeel afterwards to Revenge Kill. So he goes for the Extreme Speed, does a lot of damage, and I just Weather Ball the Lucario to get rid of it. It goes down. So then he goes into Registeel, and I'm like, okay, I want Chip on this, but I could also go into my other Mons because... but I don't know what this can do. I don't know what this can do. I don't know what it's set. So I'm like, I'm just going to get Chip on this, because I want it low as it goes for the Heavy Slam to take out my Victory Bell. I'm like, okay, I can go right out into Swampert and just click Earthquake get rid of it. But he goes into Latios. This is where the extra sat comes in, and he's able to take free, get a free switch in with Crawdon. And here, I have options. I can click Earthquake and hopefully knock this thing out, and hope it's not that bulky, or I can go into Mandibuzz and safely take a Crab Hammer because it is, or knock off because it's in the sun. I should go Mandibuzz here almost 100% of the time because it does not serve any purpose for me now. It loses to Jolteon, it can lose to Crawdon, and it can lose to the Registeel. So I should have gone to Mandibuzz here, but I stay in and go for Earthquake thinking I can outspeed and KO this, and I don't outspeed and I don't KO this, so I got double ducked. So I'm like, okay, Torkoal is useless too, I guess. The only thing it could do is win against the Registeel, and even then it couldn't really do that with 7% left. So he's just able to go for Crab Hammers as I knock out the Crawdon, and then he's able to bring in Jolteon and just finish me off to win game 2. So now it is 1-1, and the next game decides the champion of Season 10. The entire time I'm shaking. I'm freaking out. I have a lot of anxiety and a lot of adrenaline pumping through me, so I'm just like, okay, let's get it going, let's do it. And here we go to game 3. So game 3, it's the same Alakazam. I thought Alakazam was pretty universal here. I have Thunderbolt, Dragon Pulse, Substitute, Calm Mind, Defensive, Raging Bolt. So there's a lot of defensive investment, enough to live an Earthquake through a Substitute from Registeel, and also a Seismic Toss from Registeel. So if Registeel ever came in, I can go ahead and go into Raging Bolt, substitute up on whatever he wanted to do, and start clicking Calm Minds and Dragon Pulses and Thunderbolts. The next thing I have was Nasty Plot Mandibuzz with Dark Pulse, Hurricane, and I think it was HP Grass. No, not HP Grass. It was, I think Heat Wave for the Registeel and the Lucario. Then it was Banded Swampert with Earthquake, Flip Turn, Ice Punch, I think like Liquidation. And then it is the same Tauros as before, Life Orb, Sheer Force with a bunch of coverage moves. So, and here I'm thinking I need to get the lead right, kinda. And I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I'm like, well, let me just lead Swampert, because that's a safe one, and I can go for a banded move right away. And I see Crawdon, I'm like, I'm not gonna mess around with this thing. I know I outspeed it, and I can OHKO if it doesn't have a lot of bulk. But I click Earthquake, and it lives on 10, and I see he's able to go ahead and knock off. So I'm like, crap, okay. So now he's gonna go for Aqua Jet. I'm like, I'm gonna go straight into Klefki, because I want a spike up. I want to break any potential sash that he has, because he ran Sash Lucario a lot. He's able to go for Crab Hammer, knock out my Klefki as I go into Tauros as he Aqua Jets, and I'm just getting rid of this Crawdon because it's a big threat. So now he goes into Jolteon, which is free for him, and I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, because he's going to click Volt Switch, and even if he doesn't click Volt Switch or Thunderbolt, he can click whatever he wants on the next turn. So I'm like, I don't think Swampert's necessary anymore. I can just go ahead and sack Swampert and get my Alakazam in for free. So after Swampert goes down, I go into Alakazam, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to click Nasty Plot, because if I can win right here, in a sense, because Nasty Plot and Dazzling Gleam and Focus Blast and Psyshock just sweep the rest of his team. So I go for Dazzling Gleam. It can OHKO. Even through Assault Vest, it can OHKO. I think it's like a 60% chance, even with a little bit of bulk. And it does 94%. So I got a really low roll, but he goes for Shadow Ball instead of Draco, which means Alakazam still lives, which is fantastic for me, because now, one, the Latios is gone, and I don't need to worry about it anymore. And this still threatens the Jolteon. But then he brings in Lucario, and I'm like, well, the only thing I really have for this now, if he goes for Swords Dance, is Raging Bolt. So he's going for Extreme Speed here 100% of the time, but I'm going right into Raging Bolt because I don't want to risk anything. So he goes for Extreme Speed. It does 17%. I'm like, great. Here, I'm like, I'm going to click Thunderbolt. I know I can click Thunderbolt and do a lot of chip damage to this at the very bare minimum. He goes for Earthquake. I take 43%. That's fine. That's awesome. But I misclick Calm Mind. And I'm like, no way. No way, no way, no way, no way. Now another Earthquake kills me. But you can see that he goes for Extreme Speed, anticipating my Thunderclap. So now I'm in a good position. This is a back and forth game 3. Really back and forth. So here, I'm like, okay. I don't know what's going to happen. He's going to go into Jolteon and maybe Alluring Voice. That's probably what I would do if I was him. But I was supposed to do T-Bolt right away. So now my Raging Bolt is really weakened, and I'm very afraid. He can go into Gastrodon, take some chip, or he can go into Jolteon to guarantee the KO. So he goes into Jolteon, clicks Alluring Voice, and knocks out my Raging Bolt. So now I have to go into Alakazam because I know I can beat this, and at no point is he ever staying in with Jolteon. So I know I can get a free Nasty Plot here, and then click Focus Blast on the Registeel afterwards and KO that 100% of the time. So he goes into Registeel, hard into Registeel, not even a Volt Switch. So I go for Nasty Plot. I'm like, great. Now if I land Focus Blast, I win. I just straight up win because I believe I can KO the Gastrodon unless it's physically defensive. And I don't need to worry about Registeel because it's going to die in one Focus Blast, and I outspeed Jolteon. So I click Focus Blast. I critical hit him through the Chople Berry, which is really, really important because the Chople Berry weakens super effective fighting type moves, and it would not have killed through the Chople Berry. Even at +2, I think the max it does is like 60% or 70%. So Registeel would have been able to knock out the Alakazam, which means I win here. However, I start to doubt. I start to let it creep into my head that if this is physically defensive Gastrodon, I lose. I lose right away. So I'm thinking, okay, I need Alakazam to stay alive because that's the only thing on my team that beats Jolteon outright. So I'm thinking I can go right into Mandibuzz without risk of anything. So I go into Mandibuzz because I don't want to risk Psyshock not KOing, which you can consider a misplay because if this thing is specially defensive, I have a very, very strong chance of losing. So I don't know that set. It was specially defensive last game. It could be physically defensive this game and can live still a Psyshock at +2. Indicators should have told me that because Registeel and Latios were his two switch-ins to the Alakazam, that it was specially defensive. But I didn't want to take any risks because this is the championship game. So I go right into Mandibuzz on his Earthquake. So I got a free switch into Mandibuzz. So I'm like, okay, now I need to Earthquake. Or not Earthquake, Nasty Plot. And on my Nasty Plot, he goes for Stealth Rock. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh no, Alakazam is going to die if he gets a layer of spikes up. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to flinch this thing. I need to flinch this thing down immediately. And if he's I'm hoping at this point he's physically defensive, because if he's especially defensive, I have a strong chance of losing. I Dark Pulse. It does 34%, which tells me that this is specially defensive, which means that if I Psyshocked with Alakazam right away, I win. Or I would have won. So that's a misplay. 100% misplay that loses me the game, essentially. So now at this point, I'm like, well, I have to try and claw back and fight. So I'm like, I need another Nasty Plot because I can't kill with Hurricane and I can't kill with Dark Pulse. So I have to Nasty Plot. So I Nasty Plot on his Psychic, or not Psychic, Toxic. And I'm like, okay, now I need to land a Hurricane, which I do, to knock out the Gastrodon because I know I can still live a Thunderbolt from Jolteon. That's important. At 88%, I can still live a Thunderbolt from Jolteon if it's not Choice Specs. But now that he got his layer of Spike up, Alakazam dies. And Tauros will lose to Jolteon because it's slower and it can't take a hit. So now, very important, it comes down to this. He brings out his Jolteon. And now I have to A, live a Thunderbolt. That's step 1. B, not get paralyzed, because if I get paralyzed, then I have to go to step C. And step C, step A, step B, step C, something like that. Third part is that if I do get paralyzed, I have to not get full parried. It doesn't matter because I'm toxic, so I didn't have to worry about B or C. But in my head, I'm thinking, I'm panicking because this is the last turn of the match, essentially. The last one that matters. So in my head, I'm thinking, all I need to do is live. I need to live because I'm toxic already. I need to live. So then all I can do is click Dark Pulse because Dark Pulse didn't KO Jolteon with only at +2, so I need to get that other nasty plot to be at +4 or ×3 special attack. So now I just have to hope I live, and if I click Dark Pulse and I live, I win. So he goes for Thunderbolt. I live, I go for Dark Pulse, and it KOs the Jolteon, making your Lucky Luxrays the Season 10 of the NCPL Pokemon Draft League the champion. Your Lucky Luxrays are now the champion. And the entire time I'm shaking. I'm shaking the entire match. And there was a watch party. I think it was Jared, PKS, Blood Eagle. There was Calvin, and there was Flo. They were all in a Discord call in the NCPL Discord, and as soon as I won this game, I joined their call and started freaking out. Like, oh my god, I did it. I can't believe I did it. And I'm shaking. I'm shaking so much. There's like, I'm freaking out. So, yeah, this is the first Draft League I won fully. There were some in the Pokemon Showdown Club that we could have, like, I might have been able to win, but we never finish those ones. Never do, but we always try them out. But we never finish them, but they're always a good time. And it still hasn't set in. We're still a couple weeks after it, and it still hasn't set in that I won. I got really lucky with the crit on Registeel, but I kind of threw it away with the Alakazam because I could have won right there. But it was, I played very sloppy in game 2 and kind of sloppy in game 3, but there were reasons that were good enough to excuse them in a sense. But it's insane to me, because he might have thought that Mandibuzz, like, because the way this could have went is that Registeel lived, well, it probably would have came down to a stall match. So the way that if he didn't get crit, Alakazam goes down, I go into Tauros, I click Earthquake, cool. Then he goes into Jolteon, KOs my Tauros, and that's what it comes down to, is Mandibuzz and Jolteon. And I think Mandibuzz loses to Jolteon because I can't kill it with Dark Pulse right away. But if it does die, then I go with the Gastrodon, and he has to Toxic stall me to a win. So it just comes down to, like, hacks on missing and stuff like that, but thankfully I don't have to worry about that because it didn't happen. So it still feels surreal to me, and this would not have happened if it wasn't for the people that helped me along the way. The 3 people that helped me build teams a lot. Robin, immediately, he's always there to help. Flo helped me a couple times, and so did Calvin. So thank you guys for helping me build and helping me analyze my matchups. Then there's just everyone who supported me, the Pokemon Showdown Club. They were always on my side whenever it came to battling people that weren't in the Pokemon Showdown Club. But they, all of them, I've known them for years. They're all my good friends. And then everyone in the NCPL who stopped by and watched the match, no matter who you were rooting for, it was a great series to see. And I wouldn't have had it gone any other way because I won, but but because of the intense way back and forth that it was going. So I can't thank Robin enough for everything that he's done, for setting this up, for helping me a lot, and then helping me draft as well, because I gave him an idea of what I wanted, and then he helped me Pokemons, that would be really good. So Robin's an amazing person for that. So thank you to him again. I think that's everything that I want to say. So yeah, your Lucky Luxrays are me, and we are the NCPL Season 10 champion, and it feels good. It feels good. So with all that being said, I would like to thank you guys all for stopping by, watching the series, and I would thank you for being here and supporting me the entire way. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.